Steak, ice cream, beer, the 3 major food groups. Today is my 26th birthday party, and I am spending my 26th birthday party, like many others, alone with some of my favorite things. But there's something different about the 26th birthday party. For you see, that day is the day I looked at my life and I noticed I was closer to 30 than I was 20. The math makes much more sense in your 20s. And I looked at my life and I noticed I did not like where I was. I lived in this just prison of fear that I didn't know how to get out of. I went to school to be a developer and I was barely making it as a software tester. I couldn't really feel close to my friends and my family. I just couldn't really get into a relationship. And that is when I decided to change. I decided to change my life forever. And I went and read every book I can on how to become a more passionate, more joyous, and happy person. How would you like to learn how to do that?
Yes.
Well, I am going to tell you how I did that in the context of a relationship I went to a few years ago. Why a relationship? Well, who here has been in a relationship? Of any kind. You, like me, have been in a relationship. And I have seen many amazing public speakers. They talk and they get up there and I feel so energized, but there's just something not as relatable to their story. For you see, I have all my limbs. Even though I might be a little hefty, I'm pretty healthy. I have never been an orphan from another country. I grew up American poor, where I always had a food in my belly, roof over my head, and HBO. And that is why I decided to really try to relate and get my point across of everything I'm going to teach you today, everything I'm going to edutainment through a relationship that I had not too long ago. I remember when I was first teaching my Infinite Possibilities workshop, and I looked in her eyes, and I felt the love radiate off her. And that's when I decided I'm falling in love with this woman. It all started back when I was working, and I got this email. Do you want to be an Infinite Possibilities trainer? See, Infinite Possibilities is a book written by Mike Dooley, who you might have seen from The Secret. He teaches the law of attraction. And he was teaching a seminar a few years back on how to teach his principles in his book. And one thing I always wanted to do at the time was to get up in front of people and teach my stuff. So I wondered, do I want to learn how to teach from someone who's good at teaching their stuff? I decided to ask my intuition. Because when you ask your intuition, miracles happen. And the way I decided to ask my intuition is body testing. Who here have heard of body testing? Well, body testing is one way to talk to your intuition. One of the ways, the easiest to do it is with a friend. You just put out your arm and have him ask or her ask you a question. And if you're strong, the answer is yes. And if you're weak, the answer is no. Well, when I ask myself, let's rewind. The way I ask myself is, if it's a yes, I move forward. And if it's a no, I move back. And when I ask myself, did I want to be an Infinite Possibilities trainer, I move forward so fast that I almost knocked the monitor off the screen. And that is when I heard a voice. You are going to meet your fairy there. When I heard a voice, I got super excited, as this is only the second time in my entire life when I actually heard a voice. Generally, when I listen to my intuition, it's a feeling. It's just like an idea. But an actual voice, the first time I heard a voice was about 2 years after my 26th birthday when I made the change. I was trying to put myself out there, put myself in uncomfortable situations. So I went to a BBW party. For those who don't know, BBW means big, beautiful women. Because just like Sir Mix-a-Lot, I love it when baby got back. And I was at this party, and generally before this, when I was at a party with people I know or don't know, I would either, if I knew them, I would just kind of glom onto them and follow them around. Or if I didn't know anybody, I would sit down and watch the same top 10 on SportsCenter over and over and over again. Like that hockey save was so freaking interesting. But this time, I was putting myself out there. I was trying to make myself better by pushing my boundaries. And there I was dancing, smelling the aromas of this Mexican restaurant of tacos, alcohol, and body odor. When I heard a voice, "Leave now." That was weird. Okay, voice, I understand. This is an uncomfortable situation. My ex-girlfriend's here, who we were dating for a little bit, and she's with another guy. However, things are fine between us. I am going to have a good time. Dancing, having a good time. Leave now. It's okay. Leave now. Nag, 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 nag. Fine. I'm out of there. I went up to the people that I was with, told them something along the lines that I have to watch football in the morning, which was most likely true. And I started to leave. And that is when I heard a ruckus. I turned around, and the people that I came with got into this fight. A fight that I would have been in the middle of if I stayed. When you listen to your intuition, miracles happen. And the miracle that happened that night is I did not get punched in the face. And any night where I don't get punched in the face is a victory. I generally win that one. That is when I knew that everything I was working with was real. Talking to my intuition, being myself, really tapping in, being tapped in, turned on. It was real. So when I heard about my fairy, I got excited. See, my fairy is the woman that I was going to fall in love with. A nice, cute, little spiritual woman. And going to the Infinite Possibilities workshop on a nice, cold January morning. Good idea to book a Seattle in January. It was a very fun place to go. Fellas, if you are looking for a woman, let me tell you, a personal development seminar is a great place to go. There are about 80% women and 20% guys. So the chances of me finding my fairy was not that bad. And I was there, I was buzzing, I was happy, meeting amazing people, watching Mike Dooley speak and his brother, Andy Dooley, the spiritual comedian who happened to write the foreword for my book. Little plug. And as I was buzzing with excitement, I felt a buzz on my phone. At the time, OkCupid is a dating app that used to tell you if someone was in your area and had a high match percentage. I got a message from someone who said, "You were in the area, so I decided to give you a message." Ooh. Someone was listening to their intuition, and that is when miracles happen. So maybe this girl on the phone is my fairy. Well, I kept on going to the seminar, meeting women, but I wasn't really meeting the right one. They're either married, not the right age, from New Jersey. So I decided to give this woman a shot. I decided to meet at the local mall because women love malls. And at this time, I was on this Whole30 diet where you give up alcohol, dairy, grains, legumes, my will to live.
steak and beer.
Yeah, the 3 major food groups gone. And I decided in my infinite wisdom to sit right across this delicious looking Japanese crepe stand. And it was absolutely adorable. As she was sitting there looking at her, asking her if she was nervous, she said no and looked away nervously. And she asked me if I was nervous, and I said no, and let's look towards that delicious looking Japanese crepe stand. And that is when she said the words that made it known to me that there would be a second date. I love the movie Face Off. Because any woman who likes the movie Face Off is awesome. Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, overacting, doves, awesome. And there I was, teaching the Infinite Possibilities seminar on my own. She was sitting right across from me. And I could feel the love radiating off of her. And that is when I knew I was falling in love with this woman. All because I listened to my intuition, the miracle happened. I was in a relationship that I loved more than I ever loved, that I trusted more than I ever trusted. And get this, her nickname in summer camp was Tinkerbell. Fate. Listen to my intuition, miracle happened. Who here knows who Lord Alfred Tennyson is? Wow. Well, you've probably heard this saying, it is better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Who here thought that was Shakespeare? I did until I Googled it. One day, through our 6 months of texting, as you do in modern relationships, I was working and I received this text. I think I need to work on this on my own. What? Okay. Calm down. I know I wanted to deal with this like an adult. I wanted to be deliberate, which means being conscious and using your intuition, being open. And I didn't want to be triggered, especially emotionally triggered. And emotionally triggered is a lot like a physical trigger, the fight or flight symptom. Who here knows about the fight or flight? Well, for those who don't, fight or flight is when your unconscious brain takes over for your conscious brain. You either run from the stimulus or you fight the stimulus. For instance, you see a bear. If your conscious mind takes over, you'll first ask yourself, what is that big fluffy thing? I think that's a bear. What is a bear? Oh, the bears are those big, huge things that can hurt me. Oh, bears can hurt me? What should I do? I guess I should run away. Which is the best way to run at this moment? And by then, you're bear food. But when your unconscious mind takes over, you see the bear and you freeze, hoping the bear doesn't see you. You run, which gives you a chance to living, or you fight the bear because you're Batman. An emotional trigger is extremely similar. It's when your emotions just trigger automatically through a stimulus, generally one to do with people. For you see, when you're young and 8, reading people's emotional states is extremely important because you're young and weak, and being ostracized is equal to death. And unfortunately for me, one of my emotional triggers hit as I thought to myself, she abandoned me. Then bam. Oh my, I can't believe she did that to me. It used to be that you have to take someone to a nice restaurant to break up with them. Now, all you have to do is send a text. Thanks, Obama. And then I made it official. I changed my relationship status on Facebook. Luckily for me, a friend of mine sent me a message and asked, well, did she actually use the word break up? I thought, no, she didn't. And that was enough to get me to stop. Because I wanted to be deliberate. I wanted to be an adult for once in my life. Because when you're deliberate, that's how you reach your dreams. And some of you might be thinking that I was completely justified in my reaction. And I used to think the same. It wasn't from one magical day. For you see, growing up, I was a mama's boy. You can laugh. I was born to a 15-year-old girl from a broken home with abusive parents. And I was her world. And she was my world until the age of 8 when my mother abandoned me. When my mother abandoned me, I was destroyed. I shut myself down from the world. I didn't want to feel again. It was like I stuck myself in this prison of fear. Have you ever blamed anyone for something wrong in your life? Have you ever thought to yourself, if it wasn't for, if they only haven't, it's all their fault that? When someone is responsible for your problem, they are also responsible for your solution. When you blame someone for your problems, you're giving all your power away. Just like I gave my power away to my mom. Let me take you back to high school. My typical day was coming home, saying hi to my dad, who did raise me, sitting down on the couch, and escaping in hours of television. The gang at Bayside High was closer to me than most of my friends. The fictional family Tanners of TGIF was more loved to me than most of my family members. Imagine being in a room filled with friends and family and feeling completely alone. It was the ultimate form of loneliness, and it was my mom's fault. Because of her, I wasn't close to my friends and family. Because of her, I never had a girlfriend. It's all her fault I never got to do the things that you do with girlfriends. I was in high school, most important thing in the world. Because she left a wound on my heart that will never heal. And anytime I try to put myself out there, I could feel it pulse. As a reminder to shrink away. And I would still be stuck in that prison, watching hours of Saved by the Bell and Full House, if it wasn't for one special movie. Have you had a movie that has changed your life? Have you ever had a movie that has inspired you? The movie that changed my life is Kingpin by the Farrelly Brothers. For the people who aren't laughing, Kingpin is this movie about this young upcoming bowler who gets mixed up with this older bowler and ends up losing his bowling hand. His life is ruined until one day he finds an Amish kid who's going to teach him how to bowl, who's trying to save his family farm, to beat the older bowler at the $500,000 Las Vegas bowling tournament. I know what you're thinking. Life-changing. Kingpin is a raunchy comedy. A comedy that is so raunchy and so dirty, I can't think of one joke to share with such a pure audience. Kingpin is the last movie you'd ever think would change anyone's lives. And it didn't the first time I watched it. It wasn't until one day when I was regaling with my friend Nathan on how funny the movie was, when he went all Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Oprah on me, and mentioned, the thing I like about the movie is at the beginning, the young bowler blames the older bowler for all his problems, and at the end, he takes responsibility for himself. That movie had a good moral. What? That was the dumbest thing I have ever heard. That is like learning a valuable lesson from The Hangover other than don't accidentally roofie your friends. I had to prove him wrong. So I watched the movie a second time, looking for it. And spoiler alert, it's right there, plain as day. And that's when I asked myself, where else in my life am I missing taking responsibility? At that moment, my life flashed before my eyes, and it turns out I was a blaming machine. I blamed my mother, my sister, my cousins, my teachers, George Bush, those freaking birds in my roof. And it turned out that every instant I blamed someone else for, I was responsible. For you see, you're not responsible for what people do to you. You're not responsible for what happens to you. You are responsible for how you react. You're even responsible for what things mean to you. This wound on my heart that will never heal. Now when it pulses, it's a reminder to be more, to love more. I can use my pain to make me better, not bitter. And through my work of taking responsibility, I was able to forgive my mother. She was 23 at the time. Who doesn't make a dumb mistake at 23? Heck, I'm 36. I have many more dumb mistakes to come. We have a relationship now. I spent Christmas with her. It was a lovely time. I was able to feel now close to my friends and family. And even though I am single now, ladies, I've had girlfriends, and a gentleman never kisses and tells. Look through your life and think of areas where you blame someone for your problems. When someone is responsible for your problem, they're also responsible for your solution. And when you take responsibility, you have responsibility to make the changes you want to live the life of your dreams. So take responsibility, let go of blame, and be your solution. Just like I wanted to be my solution when it dealt with dealing with the fairy. The next 18 days were kind of, I was doing my best to give her space while trying to pull her closer. With every talk, every time we messaged, there was always an underpinning of like, please take me back. Until finally, on the 18th day, I decided, it's time to be deliberate. This is not working. I'm going to take a walk. And that's one good thing to do when you get emotionally triggered. Just take yourself out of the situation, maybe go into nature, take a walk, and let yourself think like I did at the beautiful Green Lake Park in Seattle. And as I was taking this walk, all of a sudden this memory of mine occurred in my head. At this time, my grandma was living with my aunt in Auburn, and her husband, due to Medicaid, was living in Snohomish. And being the good niece and grandson, once in a while, I would help my aunt, who had a driver every weekend, back and forth, and make the 2-hour trek from Auburn to Snohomish back to Bellevue, where I live. And as I was driving with my grandma, she was complaining about how the doctors weren't treating her husband right, how he was fine even though he wasn't, and that just complaining about the entire situation. And that's when I asked my grandma, Grandma, why don't you just let him go? To which she replied, I can't because I love him. Okay. That ended that conversation. But that took me back again to another memory. For you see, yes, this is a flashback and a flashback and a flashback and a flashback. When I read A Course in Miracles, and A Course in Miracles says there are two main emotions, love and fear. And my grandma wasn't loving her husband, she was fearing her husband, because you can't love and you can't fear at the same time. And that got me thinking, what am I doing with my fairy right now? Am I loving her or am I fearing her? And it turns out I was fearing. So finally, I got the courage to ask her to meet up and have an adult conversation. And it turned out the relationship wasn't working. But it didn't really matter, because when you speak from your heart, there are no regrets. And I spoke from my heart, and she spoke for hers. And we agreed to part our ways. You know the funny part? When I first got into personal development when I was 26, I had this amazing idea that I'd read the books, do the work, and all of a sudden, all my problems would disappear. Yeah, it sounds really stupid now. It wasn't until a few years afterwards when I went to a seminar. Who here has been to a personal development seminar? Isn't that last day the best day ever? You're first when you get to this place, you don't really know these people. Everyone feels kind of uncomfortable. But on that last day, you're high-fiving, you're hugging, you're feeling closer to this stranger than you've ever felt closer to anyone before. That feeling is just so electrifying. In fact, if I could just create a drug that didn't want to make me lick the wall, I'd want to take it every day. I was going up to this one guy, we're hugging, we're sharing how we're going to change our lives forever, but something was off. He wasn't happy. So I asked, "Sup, dude?" Which of course is guy speak for, "I notice there's something off with you. I am here for you. Would you like to discuss it?" To which he replied, "I've been doing this work with my wife for the last 2 years, and 2 weeks ago, she divorced me." Which at the time blew my mind. I mean, honestly, how is that possible? You've done all this work. But he replied, "It's okay. Because the beauty of this work is getting back up. I now have the tools to use to get over my divorce and move forward." Which is the true beauty of personal development, is your ability to deal with those problems. For you see, Satya and Raja, who's the teacher at the seminar, teaches that even the master who spends all his life meditating on love in the caves, whatever, he can be taken off his path. But since he's a master, it takes him 8 seconds to get back to love. Well, it took me 18 years to get back to love with my mom. It took me 18 days with the fairy. I think that's a great improvement. And would you like to hear how exactly I implemented this?
Yes.
Well, can I spend a little bit moment to tell you what I do?
Yes.
Well, first, I'm an author of the book Joyous Expansion, Unleashing Your Passions to Lead an Inspired Life, which has the Joyous Expansion system on how to connect with your intuition and reach your dreams. Also did a collaborative book with 19 other authors for Power to Change. I'm also a professional speaker. And if you enjoy this speech and you know a group who would benefit from it, I have a sign-up sheet in the back, and write your name and email, checkmark speaking opportunity, and I would love to create a win-win-win situation with them. And finally, I'm an inspirational life coach. I specialize in taking young adults, 25 to 35, to unleash their passions so that they can not look back in 10 years and regret not going for it. We get them to focus, we get them to action, we get them to celebration. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get to some real change. Abracadabra, hocus pocus. Open sesame, enapneo. And everyone's favorite, please. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, words are magical. That is why they call it spelling. Some of you will get that tomorrow. The words you use affect the world around you. In fact, I remember this story about the baseball player. Let's call him Craig Biggio. He used to go around and speak at prisons. And one day, he was speaking at his prison, and one of the prisoners shot out, "Mr. Biggio, Mr. Biggio, how did you become a Major League Baseball player?" Mr. Biggio looked down and said, "Son, every day I would play baseball with my dad. And he said, 'Son, If you keep that up, one day you will be in the major leagues. Funny, said the prisoner. My dad used to tell me, if you keep that up, one day you'll end up in prison. The words you use affect people. Positive words can send someone up into the spires of heaven, while a negative word can send them down to the depths of hell. That is why they're called curse words. Yeah, see, magic. And of all the words you use, there are no more important words than the words that you speak to yourself. I mean, imagine you're in this room with this magical box with one of your best friends, most cherished loved ones, and this magic box is just sucking all your negative thoughts about yourself and saying them to your best friend as if you are saying them. How long will it be until you take a baseball bat and start smashing that machine to bits? Because you would never let anything treat someone you care for that bad. But why would you treat yourself that poorly? You can be your own worst enemy. And I should know, I used to be my own worst enemy. I used to tell myself terrible things. You're not good enough. You're too fat. And my absolute favorite, nobody really likes you. It wasn't until one day during one of my books that I was reading after I turned 26, when I picked up You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And she said that you can look into a mirror and say a positive affirmation to heal your life. And that's when I thought, well, speaking out loud, isn't that kind of crazy? To which she replied, well, you're speaking out loud right now. Well, touché, book. And that is when I decided that I was going to do affirmation in the mirror. I was going to pick the most powerful affirmation that I can think of. Love. For you see, love is one of the most powerful emotions. It's in almost everywhere in our lives. The greatest poetry is about love. So many songs are created throughout history about love. Even the most die-hard action film like Die Hard has an underpinning of love. And that's when I decided I was going to wake up every morning, look myself in the eye, and say, I love you. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I love you. No, you don't. Ouch. When you first try to change your life, you'll meet some resistance, but keep on going. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I love you. Soon, you'll get from a no to uncomfort. And when I got to discomfort, I got excited. I decided no matter where I saw a mirror, I was going to say out loud, I love you. Well, not in the men's room. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I love you. Yeah, you do. Just imagine the pure elation of being able to look yourself in the eye and saying, I love you, and know that you actually mean it. Because of that, I was able to move on and change my life. Turns out believing that I love myself made it much easier to believe that people actually like me. And I was able to stop all that negative self-talk, all because I embraced the power of words. Now, love might not be your thing. You might think, ew, love, that's where cooties come from. I want you right now to think of the word. A word that if you embraced in your life would change it forever. The one word. On the count of 3, I want you to say it out loud. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you can do better than that. 1, 2, 3.
Love.
Yes, no, shout it. 1, 2, 3.
Love.
Do you notice that? Do you feel that? Notice how the room is a little brighter, how everyone feels a little lighter. That is because love, passion, way to go, thank you, I'm proud of you. Words are magical. Go out and cast positive spells. And write them down. Write them down into forms of intentions. Because intentions tell the universe that this is going to be your life. You're making a declaration to yourself, especially when you write them down. Because that's when you're taking a thought and you're putting it in reality. And intentions are a great way to, when you write them down, are a great way to actually remember your intentions later. There was this one time where it really helped me out. In 2010, I decided to become a Toastmaster. For the people who don't know, Toastmasters is this organization where you work on your public speaking. And I decided to join, and I wrote my intention. I, Brett Dupree, am going to become a passionate speaker in Toastmasters to change lives for the benefit of all beings. I like to go big. A few months into Toastmasters, I learned of this amazing thing, the International Speech Contest, where 27,000 speakers start out until there's one champion, the world champion of public speaking. And I thought, why not go for it? It'll be a good way to improve my public speaking. So the first time I competed, I won the club contest. Then I won the area contest. Then I won the division contest. And on my first time, I made it all the way to the district conference. This may sound like I'm bragging, because I am. I didn't place, but honestly, I was just happy to be there. And I thought, okay, I'll make it next year. Well, I didn't. I changed to a different division that was more difficult. This division had 6 speakers, my other one only had 3. And each 6 speaker, they won. Well, I couldn't really complain because all 6 were good, especially one. For anonymity's sake, I'm going to call him Ivan Drago, a Russian juggernaut of a speaker, engineered in Russian scientists to become the ultimate speaker. I decided that I was going to have my Rocky moment next year. I was going to practice, take this back for a miracle.
Did he have red hair?
Maybe. Anonymity. So I went into my Rocky montage. I practiced my speech. I watched hours of videotape taking notes. I punched meat.
Run up the steps.
Ran up the steps, chased the chicken. Until finally it was time. I breezed through the club contest, and then I went to the area contest. I was in the zone. I gave my speech, and as I was sitting there, finally eating for the day, the DTM, John Smiley, said, "Man, that was the best speech you ever did." "You're right, John Smiley, it was." As I was sitting there, the lady was talking about how the next group, the winner of the area, would go to division. And at that time, the lady who was holding all the trophies tapped me on the shoulder and says, "You're going. You're darn tootin', random lady." And that's when she said it. Second place, Brett Dupree. Curse word, 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 curse word. I had no qualms that I was going to make it to division this year. Here I was having my Rocky moment, and I got knocked out by the chicken. Just curse word, curse word. Get this. 2 weeks before the contest, the person who beat me actually practiced his speech at my club. And guess who his evaluator was? Me. Guess whose suggestions he took? Mine.
You're good. You're really good.
I put on my best, fakest smile as I'm a toast. I have to be a good sport. So I shook her hand and grabbed that certificate that soon was going in the trash. I put chairs away even though I wanted to Bobby Knight them across. And I sat in my chair and asked myself, why am I even a Toastmaster? Well, to become a better, passionate speaker and change lives. Oh yeah, that was my intention. Are you becoming a more passionate speaker? Yeah. Every time I compete, every time I get up there and speak, I am becoming better. I am sharpening my saw. When the 7 Habits of Effective People. Are you changing lives? Well, if you really did take one of my suggestions and I helped improve his speaking, in a way, I changed his life. Here I was getting all caught up in whether or not I won or not, getting caught up in becoming the world champion of public speaking and forgetting what I really got in it for. And because I wrote my intention, I was able to get back and realize the important part. I'm in contests to improve my speaking. I want to be a passionate speaker, goes out and change lives. And look, I have a crowd. My intention is becoming my reality. And that's the beauty of writing down your intention. Because when you write down your intention, it allows you to focus on what you want. And that's the first step of the joyous expansion living, is intention. The second step is action. And if you've been listening throughout my speech, you've seen action all over the place. Listening to my intuition, taking action to walk out the bar. Listening to my intuition, taking action to answer the ferry, to go out, to become an infinite possibilities trainer. Action allows you to become what you want into little steps. And what comes after action? Well, there's results. There's things that you learn from. I remember when I was really down in the dumps about when the ferry one day, drinking a beer, and I asked myself, how can I not feel this pain again? And I went back to everything I've learned. And the answer surprised me. Love more and trust more. Which was weird, because I never loved more in a relationship. I never trusted more in a relationship. In fact, I trusted her to not do the things she ended up doing. But there's a story I heard, I believe it was from James Arthur Ray, about this cancer patient. She was at this hospice, and she was just happy and bright and shiny, and she was dead in 6 weeks. And this isn't one of those awesome stories through the power of positive thinking that in 6 weeks she's still alive today. No, in 6 weeks she died. But the hospice workers thought she was kind of weird. They asked her, "You're going to die soon. Why are you so cheery?" And she answered, "Well, if I'm going to die once." And that is when a saying that I've heard over and over finally made sense to me. A coward dies 1,000 deaths. And that is because your brain is extremely intelligent, but it's not very wise. Anytime you imagine something happening, you feel it, and it's almost exactly like it happens. For instance, every time during those 18 days where I thought about the ferry leaving me, she dumped me thousands of times over and over and over again. And every time when we're in the relationship where I kind of pulled away, she dumped me then in my mind. I'm not saying if I loved more, if I trusted more, the relationship would still be going. In fact, it might have ended sooner. But what matters is I want to be a being of infinite love. That's my goal. For Mother Teresa said, the greatest paradox is that if you love until it hurts, there is no hurt. I still feel pain, so I'm not there yet. I'm going to keep on going. And finally, you want to celebrate your life. Because when you celebrate the little things in life, then life is one great celebration. I remember when I was practicing this speech at a Toastmaster event, and one of the evaluators said, I like your speech, but you spent way too much time on getting into the relationship and not enough time on the breakup. You got to get to the meat. I really disagreed with them because the meat was also at the beginning of that story. For you don't only have to learn from your failures. You also want to learn from your successes. I mean, who here has hired a mentor or a coach? In fact, my coach, Patrick Snow, I did not hire him because he failed a bunch of times. I hired him because he succeeded. And that's what you can do in your life. No matter what happens, celebrate it and learn from it. If it's something you don't want, learn from what went wrong. If it's something that was awesome, learn how you can replicate it and do it again. As I'm learning to love more and be more, so one day down the line, I have to come up with a new nickname because I know women that much. Don't give them the same pet name. And that is the joyous expansion system. Intention, action, celebration. That's because life without intention is directionless. Intention without action is just a dream. And action without celebration becomes a burden. And when you live this life, which is the beauty part, is your life just gets better and better in increments. For you see, joy scientists have determined that everyone has a happiness set point. And something amazing happens in your life, such as you win the lottery, eventually you just come back down and level out. Or something terrible in your life, like you lose your legs in a car accident. Generally, people start seeing the better things and coming back to where they were. But when you constantly work on yourself, you kind of push up your happiness set point until your highs are higher than your highs ever gone, to the point even where your lows become higher than your highs they were before. In fact, even at my lowest point during the breakup, when I was watching this comedy, This Is the End, and crying, oh my God, this movie is so funny. I knew that at that time I felt terrible, but I was happier and more joyful than I ever was before I was 26. Because I knew this is going to pass. I knew that I will be happy again and happier than I ever been. And the awesome beauty, the best part, absolutely, is the fact that people are like bells. And you hit one bell and it vibrates. And the bell over there vibrates. Because when you work on yourself, when you increase your happiness, when you increase your joy, and you go out into your life, the people around you start to vibrate higher. And then the people in their lives start to vibrate higher. And the people in their lives start to vibrate higher. And the people in their lives start to vibrate higher. Until you finally just part of the creation of a joyous expansion across this globe. It was my 30th birthday party. Ever since I was 13 years old and I saw my dad's 30th birthday party, for those who are doing the math, that's 17, I wanted to have an amazing 30th birthday party. And I didn't think there was a chance that that was going to happen. For you see, I was a lot like George Costanza. I did not want my worlds to collide. My friend Brett's and family Brett to come together, worlds collide. That was the opposite of what I wanted. But since I was able to work on myself, become a more happy, more joyful person, letting go of my resistance, letting go of my pain, I was able to invite my friends and invite my family into my 30th birthday party, which became one of my cherished memories. Just like today, as an author of a book and invited people to show up to listen to me speak, which would be the exact opposite of what I ever wanted to do before I was 26. In fact, this would have been my worst nightmare. But now it is a cherished memory. And I challenge you just to take one thing that I said, taking responsibility, being deliberate, talking from love, using the power of words, writing down your intentions, taking inspired action, and celebrating your freaking life. And implement just one in your life. And go out and create amazing memories. Thank you. I'm Brett Dupree. Yeah.